करना सर
फिजिक्स भी
सर मैथ्स कर
मेरा एक्चुअल वन
ये
सर 20 नंदिनी यार यार आ रहा सर यार आ रहा यार आज सीबीएसई का नहीं होगा क्या ये बैठे
आज कौन सा दिन
ट्यूसडे हाँ भाई तो ट्यूसडे को तुम लोग कौन सा लेक्चर होता है हिंदी ओके हिंदी का साइंस एक्स्ट्रा प्रैक्टिस सिस्टम ही होता है एसपीएससी तो होता है मुझे लगती है तुम लोग के पास मोबाइल है. You should be grateful. Are you grateful?
और ये ज्ञान बांटे हैं वो नहीं सुनना है
Not really that way.
देखा अरे कैलेंडर में बताओ नोटिस अरे शेयर क्यों नहीं ऐसे दूर चढ़ेगा
क्यों?
हो जाएगा
हाँ.
कल तो पूरा टाइम निकाला कल नहीं आ रहा
पर इतना
अरे
क्यों?
अरे दिवाली में कौन आएगा पीछे से
6 घंटा ऐसे कैसे मिस कर सकता है बायो को?
ऑनलाइन देखो कोई पढ़ाई के लिए क्लास में घुसा है आज ये आपने इससे कैंसिल हो गया तो क्या अभी बन जाएगा नहीं इसी में हमने एक तो बड़ा बड़ा जैकेट पहन लिया हुआ है जैसा 12 डिग्री करके रखो मतलब बर्फ गिरना चाहिए और कभी क्या करते हैं हो गया ये बैक पास ब्रांड पे दोषीवा अबे फिर से ऐसे नोट से जरूरत नहीं है फोन से हैक हो जाना तो होगा ना पैर कहाँ है सीधे अब हो गया बंद कर दे और शेड बंद ही कर दे कनेक्ट हो रहा वो नहीं हुआ आना चाहिए दोनों वर्ष में मैं अपना सब ऐप मार दूंगा लाइट राइट सब बंद कर दूंगा टीवी ऐसे मैं वहां कर दूं
आप फोन क्या कर रहे हो?
कास्ट कर रहे हैं मजाक से कर रही काम मेरी करती मैं स्कूल में गया था ना प्रोजेक्ट हैक मार ऑन ऑफ कर लो प्रोजेक्ट का पीछे
Good afternoon. So enjoying, no? मजे आ रहा है ना? 6 hours lecture. हाँ? ना इसमें स्कूल में ऐसे कैसे पढ़ाई होता है? स्कूल में तो इतना लंबा घंटा पढ़ते ही नहीं हो.
My class में तो मस्ती चालू होती है.
स्कूल में ना? So that's what I'm saying. So yesterday where did we stop? I think we were discussing about the female system, no? Female reproductive tract we were studying.
We had finished with the several organs, oogenesis.
So we are now to start with okay. So let us now again continue from the topic that we had been discussing yesterday. Yesterday we were talking about female reproductive system consisting of a pair of ovaries, a pair of oviducts, uterus, cervix, vagina. Functions. Ovary we had been talking about, a pair of ovaries, certain features of the ovary to remember. That in the female reproductive tract, did you all complete the diagram yesterday? So we are talking about the female reproductive system, and with reference to the parts, first is the ovary and the testis. What are some of the differences we have come across? And then the system, the process. So again, looking into the functions of the female reproductive system, we were talking about what are the two major functions of the ovary we had come across. Two major functions of the ovary, what are you supposed to write?
Secretion of progesterone and estrogen.
Secretion of estrogen, progesterone, and formation of the female gamete, ovum. What were some differences we had come across with reference to the formation of the male gamete and the female gamete?
Four functional gametes
From one cell of the testis.
in female only one.
One functional gamete from one cell of the testis. Give reason. Four functional gametes are formed from one cell of the testis in reference to one functional gametes from one cell of the ovary. Give reason. What will you write?
Because karyokinesis and cytokinesis is not even in females as it is even
In case of the males, the nuclear and cytoplasmic division, karyokinesis and cytokinesis is even when we talk in case of the male gametes, cell of the testis. Whereas in case of the cell of the ovary, what did we come across? It is uneven, and that's the reason we understand only one functional gamete. Apart from that, what were the other differences with reference to the male and the female gametes we have come across? With reference to the male and the female gametes, tell me three major differences about the male and the female gametes.
Male gamete is motile, female gamete is non-motile.
And
And with the cytoplasm in the male gamete is very
Scanty.
whereas in female it's well defined. It's
And one more difference, male and female gamete.
2 to 3 days.
Lifespan.
And in female, 24
1 to 2 days, maximum 1 to 2 days. So that was some of the major concepts that we have come across when we are talking about the male and the female gamete. Then next is we try understanding that in case of the ovary, we have already come across that if it is the ovary, what is the difference with that of the testis? If it is the ovary, the largest follicle in the ovary, what was it known as? Graphian follicle. What does it contain? Developing ova, female gamete. Now, the female gamete, which is released by the process of, what is that process? Release of ovulation. The female gamete, which is released by the process of ovulation, is it absolutely functional? Is it absolutely active to carry out the process of fertilization? No, it is not active to carry out the process of fertilization. So where does this female gamete, that is the ova, gain its functional ability? Where does it become active? In the oviduct or fallopian tube. And in reference to the male gamete, what did we learn yesterday? Epididymis. Remember all these words? Now, if I talk about that this particular female gamete, rest of the functions already we had discussed yesterday. What is the job of the uterus? What are some of the terms that should always go with the uterus? Because we have got questions. Which are the correlation questions? You will get the odd one out set of questions. You will get the correct the false statement sort of questions. So quite a number of statements, some measures, dimensions, all these things you should also know. So I had asked you to underline all those words yesterday. Function of the uterus, the cervix and the vagina, specific we had already learned. Now next, what are we going to come across is, what is the fate of the ova? There are two fate of the ova. What is it? This ovum, now that it is released from the ovary by the process of ovulation, it may undergo the process of fertilization. But provided within that lifespan, that is called the period of viability. Within that period of viability, within the period of lifespan, if the male gamete comes in contact with the female gamete. So first of all, if I have to define what is meant by the process of fertilization. What is meant by the process of fertilization? Fertilization is the fusion of one male gamete with one female gamete, resulting in the formation of a zygote. That is the definition of fertilization. So now, when I am understanding that what would be the basis of fertilization, and earlier, yesterday we were talking about the semen, which is a mixture of the male gamete and the different type of alkaline secretion. What were those accessory glands?
Seminal, prostrate gland, and Cowper's.
The bulbourethral or the Cowper's glands. So now, if I understand that this male gamete encounters, now that the male gamete comes in contact with the female gamete. Now say suppose I understand that here is the ovum, fully functional, lifespan is only 1 day, maximum 1 to 2 days, generally 1 day only functional. And at this particular period of time, we understand that if the male gamete makes its contact, again, when we are talking about the concept of fertilization, the definition of fertilization always to remember. What is the definition of fertilization? Fusion of one male gamete with one female gamete to form one single cell zygote. And here we are talking about a concept of monospermy. What is the meaning of monospermy? This large number of sperms, millions of sperms actually would enter the female reproductive tract. But already we had learned yesterday that the female reproductive tract is extremely acidic, and this is what is responsible for the death of hundreds of sperms which are entering into the female reproductive tract at one particular period of time. But still then, the process of fertilization happened. Why is it so? Because of the prostate secretion, which can neutralize the acidity to a certain extent and increase the chances of fertilization. So we are understanding out of those millions, quite a number of them are dying out. Some of them are moving up, and some of them are moving up. Some of them will move this side also. And it is now, if you ask that, how does the sperm know that the ovum is here? No, the sperm does not know that the ovum here. The sperms are moving this side also. The sperms are moving this side also. But how will the recognition happen? Because of the process of, because of the release of certain chemical substances which the sperm also releases and the ovum also releases. These are known as the fertilizing, anti-fertilizing. Variety of chemical substances are produced by the male and the female gamete, and that's how they get to come in contact. Something like a recognition, if I tell you. So now this type of a recognition first of all will happen, and now the male gamete comes in contact with the female gamete. Now that the male gamete comes in contact with the female gamete, what is getting contributed? So now, if I talk about that, this is the female gamete. The female gamete has got the haploid nucleus. What is the meaning of haploid nucleus? 23 chromosomes only. And now that the male gamete makes its contact, now that the male gamete is making its contact, the male gamete has got the haploid nucleus too. At this time, what is happening? This acrosome, yesterday we had talked about this. What is acrosome? The tip of the sperm. And this acrosome is releasing an enzyme. What enzyme? Hyaluronidase. So this is the enzyme which the acrosome will release. What is it? It's a hydrolytic enzyme released by the acrosome, the tip of the sperm. And now that the tip of the sperm has released this enzyme and the membranes of the ovum is dissolved, this nucleus will now find its way into the ovum. This nucleus will find its way into the ovum. So this process of attachment of the male gamete to the female gamete and dissolving the egg membrane, what is this known as? This is known as impregnation. Underline those words in your book also. What is this particular process known as? This is also known as impregnation. So now what is happening here? A process of release of the male nucleus into the female gamete. Which female gamete? The ovum. So as a result, what is getting formed? As a result, is there any other part of the male gamete getting its entry inside the female gamete? No, it is only the nucleus. The rest of the male gamete all are discarded. The rest of the male gamete all are discarded, and it is only the nucleus which is finding its way. As a result, what do we understand? A single cell zygote is getting formed, and this zygote now has diploid number of chromosomes. So what is the number of chromosomes of this zygote? 46 chromosomes now, where both the male and the female gamete, they were having only haploid number of chromosomes, 23 chromosomes each. So now that the process of fertilization has happened, a process of fertilization has happened. So as a result of fertilization, in this process of fertilization, what are some of the important things to remember? Yes, the restoration of the chromosome, what is contributed by the male gamete, and now that the male gamete and the female gamete come together, why other sperms are not able to deliver their nucleus? Because by the time the first sperm, or by the time one specific sperm is capable of making its attachment with the female gamete, the ovum, and deliver the nucleus, surrounding this entire female gamete, a large number of protective membranes will start getting formed. A large number of protective wall, as if a large number of protective membranes start getting formed, and this is not allowing other sperms, because in the oviduct at that time there are hundreds of sperms. Then why only one sperm is able to fertilize the ovum? Why not some few more? No, because the moment one sperm has already made its contact, the nucleus has already been delivered, entire set of reactions happen, and the ovum starts developing a large number of protective membranes. Large number of protective membranes. You have that figure also in your book. Underline few words there. So What are those? These are known as all the vigilant membrane, the perivigilant space. So all these protective membranes are generally formed. Underline this word, the perivigilant space. And then the zona pellucida. What are these? These are all the protective membranes which are generally formed when the sperm has made its contact with the ovum. And as a result, underline zona pellucida. These are the protective membranes which are formed around. Zona pellucida you are asked in the exam. So take a note. So these are the protective structures which are formed surrounding the ovum right at the time when the process of fertilization has happened. So in case of female, in case of human, is it possible that quite a number of sperms can make its contact with the ovum and the process of fertilization with a large number of sperms? No, monospermy, only one sperm with only one single ovum. So after the process of fertilization, now what is getting formed? After the process of fertilization, we understand that, and this sperm will now have its lifespan over. The lifespan is over. These cells are all degenerating. They are all dying out. So what will now happen to this? This is now getting converted into a single cell zygote. But by the time these changes are happening, actually by the time the ovulation has happened, what also has taken place in the female reproductive tract is an extensive supply of blood vessels. By the time ovulation has taken place, an extensive supply of blood vessels, an extensive increase in the layer of cells of the uterus. The wall of the uterus keeps on becoming thicker by continuous division. These are all, when we are talking about, these are all epithelial lining. The entire lining is epithelial cells. So these epithelial lining, very fast, by the time the ovum is in the oviduct, a huge number of changes start taking place, where the entire uterine lining becomes quite thicker than normal. Why? The body starts preparing that if in case the ovum undergoes the process of fertilization, then what will happen? This zygote, after a particular period of time, will need the help of this increased layers of blood vessels and epithelial tissues. So remember this, what I told you right now is, in fact, before the process of fertilization, once the ovum is already in the oviduct, the entire uterine layer starts becoming thicker with more and more increase in the number of the epithelial layers, more and more increase in the number of the blood vessels, etc. Now by the time, in case fertilization has happened, now next one, this zygote will be there, and this zygote now will result in the formation. But now will the zygote remain like this for long? No, the zygote will not remain like this for long. The zygote will immediately undergo a process of cell division, mitotic cell division. Now, for the process of gamete formation, we were talking about mitosis. Now, for the process of the zygote development, for the process of gamete formation, we were talking about meiosis. And now for the process of zygote development, we are talking about mitosis. So gametes are formed by meiosis, and now that I talk about the process of growth further from the zygote stage, what is happening? A series of multiple cell divisions, and what type of cell divisions? All mitosis. So now what will happen to this zygote now? This zygote immediately enters into a process of cell division. So first of all, it will result in the formation of 2 cells, and then followed by 4 cells, and then followed by a large number of cells here, which we are now talking about as the embryo. What is the difference between these two words, the zygote and the embryo? What is the difference? The zygote is a single cell with 46 chromosomes. And what is the embryo then? Embryo is a multicellular structure where every single cell is consisting of 46 chromosomes. How are they formed? By the simple process of mitosis. How are they formed? By the simple process of mitosis. And this single series, or this entire series of cell division, is also known as cleavage. What is cleavage? The entire series of cell division resulting into a ball of cells like this. A large ball of cells like this. What is this ball of cell? This ball of cell is also known as morula. So what has happened? A zygote was formed and this zygote was there, but this zygote has a transient phase, very short period, and immediately it will enter into a series of cell division. And progressive one after the other, 2 cells and then 4 cells and then 8 cells and then 16, and then every time the number of cells becoming just the double. Why? Because we are talking about mitotic cell division. What is the rule of mitotic cell division? One cell divide to 2 every time. So the number of cells is becoming double. In this process, what is this sequence of cell division known as cleavage? And in this process, we get a ball of cells, embryo that we call it as. But this ball of cells can also be termed a specific term, a specific phase that can also be termed as what? Morula. What is morula? It's a embryo, developing embryo, which is a ball of cells, which is consisting of a large number of cells. But by the time this developing embryo we are talking about, okay, now something more to understand. What was the significance that the ovum had to carry so much of cytoplasm? What was the need that the ovum had the maximum concentration of cytoplasm? The need is to carry out this sequence of cell division. So what happened to the other 3 polar bodies? Because here I would also understand that 3 more polar bodies also would have been there in the fallopian tube or released from the ovary. Then where are those 3 polar bodies? Are those 3 polar bodies degenerate? Does these polar bodies ever undergo the process of fertilization by any of the sperm? Yes. If at all, then what? If at all, then there will be 2 parallel zygotes. There will be 2 parallel zygotes, and that is what we are talking about as a condition of fraternal twins. Understanding? So, but then the fertilization, most of the time what happens is if the polar bodies are fertilized also by the sperm, they generally cannot survive a long stage, maybe by 7 days, 10 days time. They normally undergo the process of degeneration, but sometimes they survive and sometimes they result in the formation of 2 separate embryo like this. Separate. And exactly here there will be 2 specific zygote. So 2 separate embryo will be there, separately they will attach with the embryonic wall. So if that is what is happening, this is what we understand as a concept of fraternal twins. What is the meaning of fraternal twins? You must have also come across 2 sisters or 2, one brother, one sister. So they are fraternal twins and they need not be exactly similar looking or similar behavioral aspects. Understood? Where it is something like that this is another polar body and which has been fertilized by one more sperm. Clear? But that is not very frequent a situation that happens. Sometimes, few number of times, and this is obviously what is happening in the body. So now, when we are talking about what is the significance of the large amount of cytoplasm in the ovum, what are you writing? You are writing that the large amount of cytoplasm acts as a reserve food. It acts as a reserve food to carry out the process of cell division of the zygote get transformed into embryo. But by the time this embryo is almost about 8 to 16 cell stage, by the time the embryo is almost about 8 to 16 cell stage, it is understood that the reserve food which is there in the cell is almost getting exhausted. At this particular period of time, it depends if this ball of cells, that is the morula, if it now gets additional nourishment, it will carry out the process of fertilization, it will carry out the process of further cell division. If it does not get attached, if it does not get nourishment, it will get detached from the, it will get degenerated. Then, if it gets nourishment, what will it do, or what is generally happening to this ball of cells? What is generally happening to this developing embryo? This developing embryo start making its attachment with the uterine wall like this. It starts making its attachment with the uterine wall like this. It starts getting embedded in the uterine wall. So this developing embryo now, what happens? It starts getting embedded in the uterine wall. What is this process known as? This process is known as implantation. What is this process? This is known as implantation. What is the definition of implantation? The embedding of the developing embryo into the uterine wall. Why? To obtain nourishment from the maternal body. So why such type of an attachment automatically happens? Why this developing embryo starts getting embedded and make an attachment with the uterine wall? Because it is now running short of nourishment. Whatever reserve food was there, it is almost exhausted. And now if it receives nourishment, it will grow. If it does not receive nourishment, this will just degenerate, a concept known as abortion. So now, what will happen? This will now start getting embedded, deeply inserted in the uterine wall, a process known as implantation. When does this happen? Roughly around 7 days after fertilization. Roughly around 7 days after fertilization, this should happen. 7 to 14 days. Within this period, this should happen. If it is not happening, then slowly, even after the process of fertilization, in most of the cases, fertilization happens, but this is a crucial step. Quite a number of times, even after fertilization, even after formation on this stage does not happen at the right time, so this will not degenerate, and as it is, releases out of the body as a waste substance. So quite a number of times, as the reason, in case of the female body, it is not even understood. So when does implantation take? Keep underlining these things, are very important. You get this as questions. Implantation takes place 7 days after fertilization. It takes place after 7 days, roughly 7 to 10 days, 14 days maximum. Now that the process of implantation is happening, now next what? The process of implantation has happened. After the process of implantation, now next what? This process of implantation will continue. So inside this, the embryo is still developing. The embryo is still developing and the tissues are still developing. But now that the tissues... What was that? Now, when we are talking about this developing embryo, now what will happen? Initially, what was there? Only cell division was there. If I talk about initially what was there, one particular cell of the embryo dividing. What is mitosis? One particular cell dividing to form two cells. So this will continue for a large number of time. One cell dividing to two, this also will divide to two, this also will divide to two. But is this the only process happening now? No, this is not the only process happening now. So I would say that after a particular number of cells are formed, what will happen? This may give rise to two new cells, but this will not give rise to any more new cells. But this may just get differentiated to form certain type of cells maybe. Understood? This may start getting differentiated to form certain type of cells. What is the meaning of this? That as and when a number of cells have already been formed, now at this stage, what will happen? It is not only division, cell maturation and differentiation also has to take place, because now tissues have to be formed, organs have to be formed, systems have to be formed. So what are the processes now going on here? Division and differentiation both parallel. So what are the processes happening here? Once I talk about now that the embryo is getting converted to fetus, developing stages, division and cell differentiation, maturation has to go on together. Division as well as cell differentiation has to go on parallelly. The number of cells also has to increase, and certain group of cells should take up certain functions, mature to form certain tissues, organs, etc. And that is what we are now talking about. So after a particular period of time, yes, we will come across the structure will look a little bit different, where we will come across that certain group of cells will be formed, certain group of cells will be formed, and then there will be some cavities inside, and then certain. So now the entire embryo will start looking different now. It is not only a group of cells only, it is now resulting in the formation of a group of cells in the process of formation of certain organs and tissues. So what will we call this particular stage as? This is known as the trophoblast stage. So there are various different stages, the cleavage, the gastrula, the morula, the trophoblast. You can underline some of those words. So when we are talking about this, that these are certain specific stages where at one particular stage, the tissues and the organs are almost in the process of formation. But by that time, what next is that if you look into the stages, progressively there are some changes. So there will be some group of cells, again the changes are there, and then there's a cavity there. So there is a progressive change one after the other. But by that time, what also has happened? The outer protective layer of the embryo that will start making an attachment with the uterine wall. So now, first of all, we were talking about the embryo. Then I said it is not only the group of cells which are dividing, differentiation also starts taking place. And when the cells have already started taking the process of formation of tissues and organs, there are various blastocyst, trophoblast, all these words are there. So you'll have to remember all those words. The blastocyst, underline these words in your book also. Blastocyst is a particular stage where the embryo is now even more advanced. It is even more advanced and it is already attached with the uterine wall. So now when we are talking about this at this stage, now next what? Next is it will start making its attachment with the uterine wall even more deeper. And what will happen? The protective structures now, the outer wall, the protective structures now will start making some finger-like projections. Starts the outer protective wall of the embryo, the developing embryo, starts resulting in the formation of some finger-like projections. And these finger-like projections are making its attachment even more deeper in the uterine wall. So now, when we are trying to understand that this starts making its attachment even more deeper in the uterine wall, let me show you something like this. See here, this type of a structure I was telling you that initially it will be just the ball of cells, then group of tissues grouped together, they aggregate together, resulting in the formation of the organ systems, etc. And ultimately this entire structure will start getting embedded deeper in the uterine lining. Deeper in the uterine lining. You have got a specific figure to remember this. The placenta. Now we are going to talk about the placenta. Look into this particular structure. Figure 13.9. This very well comes in your exam also. So now we are talking about that this developing structure, the developing embryo, the blastocyst stage, now that it happens, it will start resulting in the formation of some protective membranes, and one such protective membrane will result in the formation of this finger-like structures. So now, if I talk about that later, what? The entire structure inside starts becoming absolutely different with a whole lot of tissues coming in and then a whole lot of tissues coming there. And then the entire fetus will take a shape of the developing human. The entire fetus take the shape of a developing human. So when we are now talking about that, what will be the shape of this developing human? The group of tissues are now in the process of formation of the body organs. At this stage, what are we going to term this as? Now, after particular stages, we are going to term this developing embryo as fetus. But now important is this part to understand. I have been talking about the developing embryo, then certain few stages, the blastocyst stage. At this blastocyst stage, they form these finger-like projections, make their attachment with the uterine wall even more firm. And by that time, a large number of changes there. This is known as the embryo sac. Meaning it is this particular region which is undergoing a whole lot of changes. So what will we call this inner structure now? This is known as the embryo sac. What is happening in the embryo sac? The cells are all in the formation of the body parts. What is filled in here? Some fluid. And what is surrounding? A large number of protective structures. A large number of protective structures. Now look into the diagram as I speak. If you look into the diagram, you look into that embryo sac there. The embryo sac has now a large number of protective membranes known as the amnion, the chorion, and the allantoid. Did you see those words there? The amnion, the chorion, and the allantoid. So now when I talk about the amnion is the innermost. Yes or no? The amnion is the innermost layer. Yes? The amnion is the innermost extra-embryonic membranes. So now when I talk about this entire structure, I may talk about this entire structure. I draw this in the form of a villi. Just try to understand that this particular villi, this particular structure, I'm just drawing a simpler form of this diagram. In this case, when I talk about that, these membranes are there, and this is taking the shape of a developing fetus. It is taking the shape of a developing fetus. What are some of these membranes now known as? What are these finger-like projections? And these finger-like projections are interacting with what? These finger-like projections will interact with the blood vessels of the mother. So what is this part that we understand? This is the maternal blood vessel. What are these? This is the maternal blood vessels that we understand. And what is this? This is the fetal villi. When we are talking about the fetal villi. Which one is the fetal villi? These are the fetal villi. So what is the definition of the word fetus? Fetus is the developing embryo in which the body parts have started forming. Now, if I understand that this is the whole lot of extra embryonic membranes are there. Whole lot of extra embryonic membranes are there, and the innermost membrane that I talk about. What is this innermost membrane? I would say innermost membrane is known as the amnion. Amnion releases a specific type of a fluid. What is this fluid known as? The amniotic fluid. The innermost protective membrane is amnion, and the fluid released by the amnion is known as the amniotic fluid. Is the developing fetus in direct contact with the amniotic fluid? Yes. What are some of the functions of the amniotic fluid? Provides lubrication, prevents desiccation or dehydration, and at the same time provides certain degree of movement. This fetus, as it is now growing, the limbs are developing, the fetus shows certain degree of movement. It prevents the sticking of this developing fetus to the wall of the embryo sac. Which is the embryo sac? This entire structure is known as the embryo sac now. What are the other protective membranes? We were talking about the amnion. Surrounding the embryo, what is there? If I talk in relation with the villi is developed from a layer that is known as the chorion. The villi is developed from a layer known as the chorion. What is this? And as the reason, it is also known as the chorionic villi. Chorionic villi. Why chorionic villi? Because chorion is the outermost layer which results in the formation of these finger-like projections. And the finger-like projections of this and the maternal blood vessels, they just intermose something like this, form a network like this. So what is this network now known as? This network is known as placenta. So here when we are talking about, underline all those three words there, the amnion, the chorion, the allantoid. You may be asked, you are asked that what are some of the, name the extraembryonic membranes. So these are the extraembryonic membranes. The innermost is amnion, the outermost is the chorion. And now when we are talking about, what is this part known as, look into in the figure. The rope-like structure that connects the developing fetus with the placenta, what is it known as? The umbilical cord. Underline that word. So when we are talking about this umbilical cord that is there, what is it? It is a rope-like structure of extensive number of nerves, blood vessels, etc. that is connecting the developing fetus with the placenta. Then how will you define? This part is the placenta. If I have to define, what is the placenta made up of? Look into the figure and tell me, what is the placenta made up of? The placenta is made up of this and this. Name the two tissues which make up the placenta. The two tissues which make up the placenta is the fetal villi and the maternal blood vessels. But then what is this umbilical cord that we are talking about? The umbilical cord that we are talking about is a rope-like structure, extensively coiled, consisting of blood vessels and nerves, which are connecting the developing fetus to the placenta. What is the job of the placenta now? And the entire process of formation of the placenta, what will we call this as? Placentation. So we had started with those words, ovulation. What was it?
Release of
The ovum in the fallopian.
Implantation, what is it?
Embedding of the
Developing embryo into the uterine wall. And now what is placentation?
formation of this.
Formation of the placenta and attachment with the uterine, attachment with the maternal blood vessel. That is placentation. What are some of the major functions of the placenta? Now, when we are talking about the major functions of the placenta, what would be some of the major functions that you have to remember? The major functions of the placenta to understand, if you have to come across the placenta, 3 or 4 major functions of the placenta to come across is, number 1 is that when we are talking about this developing fetus, does this developing fetus have adequate methods to take in nourishment? No, it is absolutely dependent on the mother's blood. So it is actually from the mother's blood that the different amount of nutrients and the vitamins and the hormones, etc., all will get diffused. So the process of diffusion will generally happen. So first is, should I say that the placenta actually acts as a surface which allows the process of diffusion of the variety of nutrients and hormones and all the different essential vitamins and etc., etc.? Yes, from the maternal blood to the developing fetus. Second is, apart from that, this placenta also acts as a embryonic respiratory organ. This placenta acts as a embryonic respiratory organ. Now, why can we say that it is acting as an embryonic respiratory organ? Because this particular fetus does not have any specialized organs functional. Now, the lungs are in the process of formation. So, it is not in contact with the external environment at all, that it can take in oxygen, give away carbon dioxide. So, this placenta itself is carrying out the process of diffusion of oxygen, and the fetal tissues, by the way of this umbilical cord, the carbon dioxide will diffused out into the maternal blood. Oxygen is diffused from the maternal blood towards the fetal tissues. Carbon dioxide diffused from the fetal tissues towards the maternal blood. So that's the reason it is considered as a embryonic respiratory organ. At the same time, it is also considered as an embryonic excretory organ. Why like that? Because this same fetus, it does not have any access to the external environment, but it is in the process of growth, maturation, organs are developing. So by the time it is almost in the 5th and the 6th month, what is happening? the cells and the tissues have started releasing waste substances. And now that the liver is also partly getting formed, urea is getting formed there. Urea is now getting formed. But how does it get released? The urea also has to get released by the way of diffusion into the maternal blood. So this developing fetus, till the time it is released from the maternal body, is constantly releasing waste substances right from the 5th month especially. Then where does it go, release all its waste substances? It has no other way apart from diffusion into the maternal blood. So majorly what we are only talking about urea, but it can be a variety of other ammonium salts, compounds, etc. Uric acid, bit of uric acid, potassium salts, etc. So all these would be released into the maternal blood. So far I am talking about 3 major functions of the placenta. What did I mention just now? Placenta helps in the diffusion of nutrients, all the different type of essential substances, vitamins, hormones, antibodies, and everything. Second, I said it helps in the exchange of respiratory gases. Third, I said it helps in the release of the excretory waste, the nitrogenous waste especially. And the fourth is the placenta also acts as a temporary or embryonic endocrine gland also, as an endocrine organ also. So this also acts as a endocrine, a temporary or a embryonic endocrine organ, and is releasing hormones majorly like progesterone. Why we are talking about progesterone? Because progesterone is a hormone which at this particular period of time should be adequately present in the maternal body. Otherwise, the process of complete growth of the fetus will not take place. Progesterone levels should be adequate. Otherwise, even in the 5th month, 8th month also, there may be detachment and improper growth, and this may result in various conditions like abortion by the 7th or 8th month also possible, and stillbirth or various other complications. So when we are talking about the level of progesterone should be adequate all throughout this process of growth of the fetus. So now that the process of placentation is over and all the process of growth and the release of the waste substances, respiration, everything is carried out, in a period of now, after placentation, in a period of something around 40 weeks or 9 months, the period of gestation is over. What is gestation? The entire period of growth of the fetus. The entire period of growth of the fetus. What is the period? You have to remember, the entire period of growth of the fetus takes place in 40 weeks or 280 days or 9 months. So in all the 3 ways you have to remember. So gestation, remember the definition of gestation. What is gestation? Gestation refers to the entire period of growth of the fetus. Where does it take place? In the uterine wall. So now that this was growing, the entire embryo sac will progressively keep on becoming bigger. Now that this is happening, the entire embryo sac, after a particular period of time, what will happen is, the entire embryo sac will keep on becoming bigger, bigger, bigger. And then here we have the developing fetus. We have got the developing fetus inside. And now we understand that this uterine sac, which is a muscular organ, is capable of expansion. So the entire period of gestation will involve the progressive expansion of the uterine wall. But after a period of complete period of some 40 weeks or 9 months, what is there? Release of hormones known as oxytocin will have to be there in adequate amount so that the developing fetus is released from the maternal body. What is this process of release, or a process known as childbirth that we are talking about? What is this process known as? Parturition. What is this process known as? Parturition. Parturition is the process of release of the developed fetus from the uterine sac by the way of the vaginal opening. Which hormone majorly plays an important role? Oxytocin, and followed by prolactin. Prolactin later. Oxytocin plays a very important role here. Oxytocin is released by the pituitary gland, the posterior or anterior? Posterior pituitary. Posterior pituitary releases the oxytocin hormone, and it is very much important for the process of parturition. Yeah. So this is the major sequence of stages that you have to remember if the ovum undergoes the process of fertilization. But again, we have to understand the other way also. In a period, or say suppose if I talk about the reproductive period of a female body, at one particular stage the reproductive period starts something around 12 years, 12 to 14 years. So from that particular period of time till something around 50 years on an average, 50, sometimes it can be 52, 53. So till that period of time, what are we understanding? This is what is the period of time when the female body can carry out the process of development of the fetus. So this is what we are talking about as the reproductive age. So during this reproductive age, this particular process in the female body must be happening just few times. Then what is happening most of the time? Most of the time what is happening is this ovum which is there in the fallopian tube completes its lifespan and does not undergo the process of fertilization. But the moment the ovum is there in the fallopian tube, what will happen? These changes are obvious. Every time when the ovum is there in the fallopian tube, by a process known as ovulation, the changes in the uterine wall is obvious. Why these changes I told you? What is the necessity of these changes? The necessity of the uterine wall becoming thicker is to prepare the uterus for the process of implantation every time. Okay, so what are we studying now? We are studying if the process of fertilization does not happen, then what? If the process of fertilization happens, then this is the sequence of changes. If the process of fertilization does not happen, then what will happen is that this ovum, which will now become very mature after a particular few hours, after ovulation in few hours, the ovum is absolutely mature to carry out the process of fertilization. But now it has already completed its lifespan. Its lifespan is over now. Then what will happen to this ovum? This ovum will now start getting degenerated, breakdown. It's a cell. And this particular cell will start getting broken down. But the breakdown of this ovum is also brought about by the breakdown, or the breakdown of the ovum is also associated with the breakdown of this uterine wall. Hormones. So when we are talking about this particular ovum, the moment it has already completed its lifespan, the moment the lifespan is over, what will happen? It has got a sequence of changes to follow, not only in the ovary, but also a large number of changes to follow in the uterine wall. Now let us learn this as a sequence of steps. So when we are talking about what happens to the ovum when it does not get fertilized, what happens? And this is what is majorly happening in the female body. This ovum will undergo the process of degeneration, followed by the degeneration of the uterine wall. What is this particular process known as? This particular process will be known as a process of menstruation. And what will this include? Menstruation has got certain phases. Tick those phases in your book. What are those phases in your book? The stages of menstruation. What are the stages of menstruation in your book? Check. The first is the menstrual cycle, the follicular cycle, the follicular phase, followed by ovulatory and luteal phase. So the 4 phases you will have to remember. What are the 4 phases? First is the menstrual phase. Second is the follicular. What was the meaning of the word follicular? Follicle means what? Cell. A big cell. Next is the ovulatory phase. Next is the ovulatory phase, and the last is the luteal phase. Now, when we are talking about this entire phase, check here, the entire phase is a phase of 28 days. The entire phase is a phase of 28 days. Now, something like, if I have to show you something this way, the entire phase, say suppose I start from 0 and then 2 and then 4, 8 and then 10 and then 12 and then 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. There's a diagram in your book that's very important for you. 24, 26 and 28. What are we trying to understand here? Progressively, what will be the period of time? Now, why 28? Why are we talking about this 28? Because every cycle, meaning every cycle of formation of the ovum is repeated in a period of 28 days. Or say otherwise, the entire process of menstruation is repeated in 28 days. It's the same day. Whether I say that the ovum is formed in every 28 days. Now that the ovum is formed, after a period of 28 days, it will be formed from here again. After a period of 28 days, it will be formed here again. So now that it is formed here, what are some of the changes in the uterine wall? That is what we are trying to compare. Right? That is what we are trying to compare. Now, in this case, say suppose this is the uterine wall that we understand. So, in this case, if you look into here, so the first phase, just before the follicular phase, in your book, you will have before the follicular phase, the menstrual phase. Yes? Before the follicular phase, there is always the menstrual phase. Then the follicular phase. So, check the number of days. Very important. Check the number of days. Menstrual phase. It is the first few days, 3 to 5 days. On an average, it is 3 to 4 days. But okay. So we are talking about this particular phase. I would say generally from here to here, this is the menstrual phase. Then from here to here, this is the follicular phase. Then this particular phase is the ovulatory phase, and this longest phase is the luteal phase, correct? Now, in this particular stages, what is happening? That if I look into the stages of the ovary, what is happening? Menstrual phase. In the menstrual phase, what is supposed to happen? In the menstrual phase, if you check in the menstrual phase, the new follicle which was formed, the follicle was getting ruptured. So I will say in the menstrual phase, what was happening? The follicle was getting ruptured here. The follicle was getting broken down. Then what will happen in the follicular phase? In the follicular phase, this is what we are talking about, the uterus. First I'll talk what is happening in the ovary. In the ovary, what is happening? What will happen in the follicular phase? A new follicle is developing. Something what we had already come across in the ovary earlier. New follicle developing, then now this results in the formation of the gametes, and the gametes are formed. So all this. Then ovulation phase, what should happen? In the ovulation phase, the release of the ovum. Understanding? In the ovulation phase, exactly when? On the 14th day. On the 14th day of the cycle, generally the release, 14th to 15th. So at that particular period of time, what is this process now? This particular process is ovulation. When exactly? On the 14th day. And then what will happen after ovulation? What did we come across in the section of the ovary that I showed you yesterday? Now that the Graafian follicle is rupturing, releasing the ovum, this Graafian follicle will repair back again. What is this now known as? Luteum. And this corpus luteum releases the hormones and carries on the development of the follicle. Hence the name of the phase also luteal phase. Okay. Now, in this case, when we are talking about what is happening to the uterus, check here. What will happen to the uterus? First, if I talk about the menstrual phase, what is happening? The menstrual phase, can you see here? The uterine wall is all shredded or degenerating or breaking down. Then in the follicular phase, what will happen? The uterine wall is again reforming, again of the normal width. Then by the time it has completed the follicular phase, it is becoming thicker because ovulation has already happened. Ovulation has already happened. So by the time ovulation has happened, the wall will keep on becoming thicker. So if we talk about the menstrual phase, always we are supposed to generally understand that the uterine wall is degenerated during the menstrual phase. Then the follicular phase, it is developing, again growing. When will it take a peak? After the process of ovulation, it will again become thicker. After the process of ovulation, it will again become thicker. And if the process of ovulation has happened and no fertilization, again it will develop, and after this period of time, again it will start shredding down. That is the menstrual phase again. So after the luteal phase, what will come? Again the menstrual phase. What is happening in the uterus? What is happening in the ovary? This is what your diagram. Look into the diagram of your textbook and tell me if it is understood. What are you supposed to understand? Number one, the 4 phases, the time periods respectively. So the menstrual phase, generally the first 4 to 5 days. What is happening in the uterus? This is the layer of the uterus lining we are talking about. What is happening? Breaking down, shedding down of the uterus lining. What is happening in the follicular phase? In the uterus, the follicular phase, the layer of the uterus is again building up. So this uterus lining will again build up. It is built up. It is building up again. Parallelly, what is happening in the ovary? The new follicle starts its growth and forms the gametes inside. Then, by the 13th, 14th day, what is happening? The length or the depth of the ovary, the depth of the uterine wall is picking up now. It is becoming thicker, 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 thicker. What is happening here? In the ovary, ovulation has already happened. So by the 14th day, this has to take place roughly. After that, 18th and onwards, the uterine wall will keep on becoming thicker and maintained. But now that the process of fertilization did not happen and it got degenerated and everything there, it will again start shedding down. That is the menstrual phase again. And this entire cycle will keep on getting repeated every 28 days. So now that we are talking about the menstrual cycle, the 4 phases of the cycle, the time period and the parallel changes in the uterus as well as in the ovary and the duration of the time that you have to remember. So at the end, when we are talking about in the menstrual cycle, then what is happening? What is happening to the female body is a whole lot of the blood vessels, torn out blood vessels, the degenerated ovum, and the dead tissues of the epithelial tissues, mucus, dead blood cells, all get released out of the body, and that is what we are talking about as the menstrual phase. So the 2 fate of the ovum that we had come across, one is if the ovum gets fertilized, then what is it? And if the ovum does not get fertilized, then what is it? So these are the 2 basic changes that you will have to come across, the 2 phase of the ovum that you will have to come across. Now, next is solve this. See if you are able to answer these questions. First, to take this question. The stages in development of the human embryo, this also roughly you just go through. Some most important is the blastocyst, the morula, blastocyst, morula, please check those words. And the heart and the blood vessels develop generally in 4-5 weeks, limbs develop in 8 weeks. This roughly you should remember. Next, Okay, complete this exercise and then see the permeability of the placenta. Permeability of the placenta. When we are talking about permeability of the placenta, just now we were understanding that the placental membranes can allow the process of diffusion. Next paragraph, the small paragraph is the permeability of placenta. Now take that paragraph, that's important. We are not only talking about, just now I mentioned, this placental membrane is permeable to variety of substances, right from antibodies, antitoxins to variety of drugs and poisons also. Variety of drugs and poisons also. So now when a female has already conceived a fetus, and if this female is on heavy doses of drugs, heavy doses of alcohol, and certain other different type of medication, all these substances can pass through the placental membranes also. This female, if she is suffering from certain type of diseases, various different type of substances, microorganisms also can get passed on from the maternal body to the fetal body. So underline if a female is suffering from, if the mother is suffering from AIDS, will the child also suffer? Will the child has a chance that the child may be suffering from HIV or will may be affected by HIV? Give reason. Why? If the mother is suffering from AIDS, what will happen? There are chances that this virus can also be can pass through the placental membranes and affect the developing fetus also. So all the different type of antibodies, vitamins, drugs, harmful chemical substances, that's the reason the female is always asked to refrain from all this because it will affect the developing fetus inside. Look into that exercise now, check that small progress check. Are you able to solve? No, read it that side. One exercise is left. Complete that and then go ahead with the exercise. Which is 177.
If one of the phases in the this cycle, if it gets elongated, so the next phase will continue from that only, or it will also be.
Meaning if ovulatory phase is long phase.
No. Like ma'am, if the menstrual phase gets extended from like 3 to 5, it's like 4 to 7, then ma'am the follicular phase will start from 7 or.
No. If this particular phase is extended till the 10th day, this particular happens. If this particular phase is extended till the 10th day, what is happening? The rest of the phases are not just getting extended. The ovulatory phase will be roughly around this only. So 1 or 2 phases are getting shortened. So this is only because of some improper hormonal balance in the blood in the body. The menstrual phase should generally not be, naturally should not be beyond 5 days. But certain cases we come across females where it may be something for 12 days also, 10 days, 12 days also. So it is not regular, that not a problem, it will go on. But the hormonal levels have to be corrected a little bit. It is only because of the improper level of estrogen, progesterone. Look into that short exercise there, and after that we'll take up the.
In the menstrual cycle, when does the corpus luteum release progesterone and estrogen?
In the luteal phase,
It releases.
estrogen and progesterone both, but in the luteal phase it will release. Majorly the estrogens. Progesterones now in smaller amount also not a problem. But when we are talking about in the process of maintenance of pregnancy, progesterone level has to be specific. Look into that graph. That graph also speaks about the level of estrogen and progesterone. There are other hormones also. Now see, if I talk, that is not mentioned in your book, but then when we are talking about the follicular phase, when the follicular phase is during the follicular phase of the hormone, during the follicular phase of the cycle, which hormone should be adequate in the body?
LH.
FSH. Okay. So that way. And during the process of formation of the corpus luteum, LH. In the luteal phase, LH. Okay. During this phase, LH should be adequate, and during this phase, FSH should be adequate in the body. Then the cycle will be proper. Now go with this exercise. If it is done, then go ahead. Let us complete with the rest of the questions. Check. Right. Page 1, 83. 20.
Types of twins.
Two types of twins. Identical and fraternal. Identical will be what? The zygote is already formed. Fusion was with one ovum and one sperm, like this. No. And now that the zygote is formed, the zygote is supposed to, now that the zygote is formed, the zygote is supposed to show a two-cell stage. This two-cell stage should remain intact. The two parts of the zygote should remain in contact. They should not get separated. But sometimes what happens is they get separated this way. They would just get separated this way. So if they get separated this way, very fine gap, the two cells during the process of cell division which are supposed to be together, they have separated. Now what will happen, this will continue as a separate embryo, and this part will continue as a separate embryo. So two separate embryo are there.
Now they are of the same gender or different genders?
Same gender. It's the same sperm, no? Same sperm, so same gender. Understood? So it is something like this. Two different embryo there. Separate embryo. Identical twins and fraternal twins, I already told you, that will be with the polar body. One polar body and the sperm. Go ahead with those questions.
Write one sentence each using the following terms: retaining the reproduction in humans, head first.
Write one sentence with the following terms. Head first.
What's the baby head?
Gestation is this. Head first. After birth. Head first is this one. No? After birth is tied and cut.
What is head?
After birth is umbilical cord which what type?
Tied and cut, right? Cut and what about tied?
Tied and cut means the umbilical cord is all wrapping around, quite a number of times. The umbilical cord is wrapping around and it is attaching the fetus with the maternal body. So at the time of birth, that has to be cut. At the time of birth, it has to be cut. So that's the term itself is like this, tied and cut. Write one sentence each using, you have to just write one sentence pertaining to reproduction. Gestation is not matching. It's not matching. You have to just write one sentence. Gestation. So you know the meaning, it's okay in this type of question, we not know. Gestation, you know what is it? Head first meaning the head should be towards the cervix. The head should not be towards the upper region of the uterus. It should be towards the cervix. During the process of birth, is the head which comes out first. Now the limbs, quite a number of times what happens by the 8th month, 9th month, the limbs are, the fetus may be horizontal. Or the fetus is in such a position that the head has gone outwards and it's a very risky situation. At that time, they have to do cesarean, they have to cut the uterus. It depends. Quite a number of times, maybe because of the movement of the female body in these months. Quite a number.
Like, why does it matter if the limbs are?
No, if the limbs are first, just imagine if the limbs are first, the body of the fetus will get stuck. The limbs have come up, the upper body will get stuck. The body of the fetus is all like this. So the head comes and it's slippery with the mucus, it comes up, then the body comes up. But if the limbs comes out first, then it is very, very dangerous. So if that is what is understood, then they will never allow that. So they go to cesarean at that time.
Does the fetus inside the mother's uterus breathe?
If the
Does the fetus inside the mother's uterus breathe?
it breathes by the process of diffusion. No, it's not. It's not breathing. It's not breathing. It does not breathe. It breathes only after the process of birth. After birth, then also all the mucus and everything has to be cleaned, and then only the process of breathing starts. It is only the diffusion. We can say exchange of gases take place, but diffusion, not breathing.
Placenta does not produce certain
Um,
placenta is
Organs. It does.
Placenta
Provides more.
Yes.
provides hormones. Placenta.
ऊपर एक क्वेश्चन था ना, टू hormones secreted from placenta.
Placenta acts as a temporary endocrine gland.
या वही उसी प्रोग्रेस चेक
अरे हाँ किया
Solve नहीं किया।
yes.
Mother's blood flows into the fetus of placenta.
Mother's
Mother's blood flows into the fetus of placenta.
the blood does not come in contact. Right? It's only diffusion of substances.
All is done.
हो गया? This set of questions done. Go to the next.
हाँ हो गया। पहला follicle, next graphene follicle, फिर process ovulation, वो फिर fallopian tube और last implantation.
What we have finished yesterday, did we finish? We have finished. Now take the mixed questions. Up to Pura chapter complete, we will not take all the questions. MCQ in the following one.
Onset of menstruation.
That I forgot to mention. So here menstruation starts, onset is known as menarche, which is roughly around 9 to 10 years. Maybe in your book it is mentioned 10 to 12 years, just check. But now that number doesn't work. 12 years, no? But nowadays it's not 12 years, it's by 9 to 10 years. Anyways, you have to go by that number. And now, next is menopause. Menopause by 50 to 55 years, menopause. The complete stop of menstrual cycle. The complete stoppage is known as menopause and the onset is known as menarche.
Human menstrual cycle, the ovulation occurs around
13 or 14.
Yes.
13 or 14.
To hormone secreted by corpus luteum.
Progesterone, progesterone.
Which of the following cannot pass readily through the placenta? Six.
Hemoglobin.
Hemoglobin.
What are the options?
Antibodies, alcohol,
Amino acids,
Hemoglobin.
Mom, does the seminiferous tubule store the sperms until they get mature and motile?
Epididymis does that job.
umbilical cord is a passage.
It's a pattern. It is if you get questions, does the process of diffusion occur by the umbilical cord? That's correct. So what is umbilical cord? It's a connection between it's a rope-like arrangement connecting the fetus to the placenta. Then what is the placenta? You will get questions. It's a disc-like arrangement. It's a disc-like arrangement. Disc मतलब एक plate जैसे है. It is a disc-like arrangement. Check the previous figure I asked you. No? Previous there. It's a disc-like arrangement. This figure you generally get in your exams also. It's a disc-like arrangement consisting of the fetal villi and the maternal blood vessels. So from the placenta, the arrangement of the nerves and the blood vessels till the fetus, that is umbilical cord.
Rewriting logical sequence किया तो
Continue.
first gestation and
Vignesh, complete those exercise. फटाफट करो.
My gestation.
Ovulation.
First ovulation is
Ovulation, fertilization,
ovulation, implantation, gestation, childbirth.
के बाद
Yes, gestation is the entire period of growth.
First
Okay.
ovulation,
fertilization, ovulation, fertilization, implantation, gestation, childbirth.
What is the other word for childbirth?
parturition.
Parturition.
And what was micturition?
Release out of nitrogen waste under prelude.
No, release of the urine from the water.
Pointers क्या है? Second का क्या है?
Second
Sperm, coitus, sperm,
करो.
vagina, urethra.
Sperm duct,
coitus,
नहीं, sperm duct, urethra, corpus vagina.
Coitus.
Second one.
What's it?
नहीं, मतलब sperm duct आता है.
Which one? Or that? Which one?
Second one.
B. Sperm duct, sperm. Next. Sperm duct, sperm, urethra, coitus, vagina. Coitus means copulation. The process of entry of the male gamete into the female body.
Coitus is plasma.
हाँ, sperm duct है. उसके बाद क्या है? Sperm duct, sperm, urethra, coitus, vagina. Got it? Sperm duct याद है? Sperm duct. What is sperm duct याद है? So sperm duct, which will contain the sperm, released by the urethra.
पहले sperm आएगा ना? क्योंकि sperm duct के अंदर तो
अच्छा, correct. पहले sperm from the testis. हाँ, correct. तो पहले sperm duct, urethra, coitus, vagina. Correct. Vignesh, अपने से करो. Do it on your own.
What's ostium?
Yeah, the other day I told you, yesterday, ostium are the finger-like projections.
Membrane.
That is the finger-like projections of the funnel of oviduct.
Urges, sperms, conduct, testes, sperms, conduct, semen, recipients.
क्यों? सब उनको पूछ के करना है क्या?
Menstruals.
What's menstrual?
Which one? Puberty, menstruals, menarche, reproductive age. अच्छा.
Reproductive age, puberty, menstrual. Reproductive age.
Reproductive age is the entire period. Reproductive age will include your menarche also, menopause also, or puberty also. So menstrual. So it's the last one.
And the first will include everything. So it will start, everything will start with that, right? First it will be
So you might start with reproductive age, puberty, menarche, menstruals, menopause.
What is menstrual?
Menstruals means the period. Period. Got that? Did you get that? Yes. हाँ तुम लोग अपना डिस्कशन छोड़ो. Did you get the questions? हाँ करो fast.
Rewrite and complete. Follicle cells, ova, then sperms will be.
Follicle cells, ova, sperms. Follicle cells, ova. Follicle cells, ova. यहाँ पे sperm mother cells actually. Yesterday I talked about the spermatocytes या sperm mother cells are there, so that is what you have to write. It is there earlier, the table was there, it's all not repeated. Centimeters to use it. Because the sperm cells are not mentioned in your book.
Estrogen is a pituitary gland, or we say
What?
Corpus luteus.
What?
Estrogen. See, like here it is given Leydig cells, testosterone. So we like corpus luteum, estrogen or pituitary.
Corpus luteum. Pituitary has no relation with estrogen, progesterone. Boys, तुम लोग अपना बातें छोड़ो and complete the exercise and Vignesh do on your own.
luteal phase lasts for
Luteal phase lasts for almost about, see there's 15 to 16 days, right? Starting from the 16th day to the 28th. So कितना हो गया? 6 into 4, and 12 days, roughly around 12 days, 12, 13 days. So for this type of questions, you'll have to go for the most appropriate. 12 days or 14 days, which is the most appropriate.
Fetus is contained in the embryo sac.
Inside the embryo sac.
Metabolic care, lactose,
spermatozoa.
ovulation,
Don't tell him. Let him try. Try on your own. Vignesh, questions करो.
yeah, relationship follicle cells, ova, dash,
Seminiferous.
Seminiferous.
Seminiferous. Why is this girl absent today? She said something.
ceremony.
Complete with the questions, then you go
After
to
formula
population.
we write
After
blastocyst.
blastocyst. In which particular stage implantation takes place? Blastocyst. Let us do some questions together. When I do this,
What function will be?
Connects the fetus to the placenta.
passage of substances of the living, right? Passage of nutrients, respiratory gases. One 186 over. Vignesh, if you finish, page 186. First side. 4, 5, 6 before C, did you finish? B, 4, 5, 6, you finished?
Formation of hydrolysis.
Dissolving the
Dissolving the
membranes of ovum. Egg membranes of the egg, right? Or membranes of ovum also. Egg membranes
dissolving
of
the whole of the ovum.
Morilla, what is this stage?
what?
Morilla. What is this stage?
This stage means
Morilla.
the stage. The stage. What is this stage? Multicellular embryo or developing embryo. Developing embryo. That's it. What is morula? It's a developing embryo. Multicellular structure. It's a developing embryo.
And the stage next to it?
Blastocyst.
It's the largest space. Okay, sir.
Blastocyst.
It's a
करो करो. Yes. आप पे डाउट है?
Bleeding cell, testosterone, dash.
Corpus luteum.
luteum.
Corpus luteum.
Two sources and form placenta are there.
Maternal blood vessels and fetus.
Fetal villa. हाँ.
Are there
yes. Actually,
हुआ Vignesh, this page is over. Go to the next. Some questions yesterday we did. यहाँ पे सारा important है, करो. We'll move on to the next chapter, population. Population में खाली दो ही topic पढ़ना है, और कुछ नहीं.
हाँ.
implantation occurs 5 to 7 days later. May 37 to 14 days.
From the approximate time after fertilization when implantation occurs?
7 days.
Important function of inguinal canal.
Pathway to the destiny.
Pathway from the
Testis to
Bladder.
testis to ascend towards the bladder. Connect the testis towards to the bladder. Connect the testis to the bladder.
Fertilization.
Now, so what is the significance of the testes being located in scrotal sac outside the abdomen diaphragm? But can there be any abnormal situation regarding their location?
if so, what is that?
Even after the birth of the male infant, prior to birth, the testis should descend away from the abdomen. After birth, if the male child is found to be born with the testis inside the abdomen, that's an abnormality. what to do initially before a particular period of time. This has to be surgically corrected. And ये अगर possible नहीं है and अगर नहीं होता है, then definitely this male is sterile. Because gamete formation inside the body will never happen.
So we'll write sterility.
What is the question? What is it?
Please, question B. What is the significance of the Can there be any abnormal situation regarding their location? If so, what is that and what is the harm caused?
Hernia is different. Hernia is not. This case can say that term is not mentioned, I think.
But can be like implantation of the important function of uterus.
Important function of uterus to guide one function the entire process of development of the fetus.
Gestation.
Gestation. Cycle gestation. The entire process of gestation. Which question is? Significance of the development. Okay. Can there be abnormal? Yes. Regarding this location. So what is that? What is the So here, so what is that? There is medical terms are there, but here that is not mentioned in the book. So what we generally write is what is that? So what is the abnormal regarding this? The testis, if contained inside, what is the harm caused? Testis, if contained inside, testis is inside the abdomen, testis is inside the abdomen, and this results in sterility. Testis is inside the abdomen, which results in sterility. Infertility also is known as infertility or sterility. Done? Go ahead.
What are accessory reproductive organs?
Accessory reproductive organs, yesterday we have come across, no? Seminal vesicles,
glands.
What accessory gland? Organs?
Same. Accessory, now see, primary reproductive organ, when it is asked, primary reproductive organ, you have to write testis. Now, secondary reproductive organ, if asked, what will you write? Or accessory. Now, I think there, accessory reproductive organs are mentioned, no? Organs. For the male body or female body? Reproductive organs. Then, all the reproductive organs, not the glands here, since it is for common, it is not seminal vesicles, etc. Accessory reproductive organs, apart from the testis and ovary, the rest all. Understood? Accessory reproductive organs and glands, that's different. Because it's a general question, it is not seminal vesicle. If for the male, then still. Accessory reproductive organ, apart from the testis and ovary. So I would say, in case of the male body, what is it? The vas deferens, the urethra, the penis. In case of the female body, what is it? The fallopian tube, the uterus, cervix, vagina. Accessory reproductive organs. Why? Because these are not the primary organs. Why again? They are not involved in the formation of gametes. What are primary reproductive organs? The ones which are directly involved in the formation of the gametes and the hormones. So, organs which are not doing these two functions, these are all secondary or accessory. Karo fast, complete karo. We'll have to move on to the next chapter.
But is it correct to say that testis produce testosterone?
Yes.
Yes. Because it has
Ladies. It is the testis inside which is having the seminiferous tubules and surrounding the seminiferous tubules only testosterone. Now this diagram based questions, try Shani will try as homework. Number 1 karo. Number 4. Number 5. Number 5 and 7 you try now. Number 1 and 4 you can try later. It's easy. Number 5, 6 also if you want to do. 5, 6, 7 of you complete the class. 5, 6, 7 of you.
Is it correct to say that testes?
Yes.
Testes is the Leydig cells are inside the testes. Testis is whenever we are writing the functions of testis, we always write testis producing male gametes secreting testosterone. Why? Because the hormone is not produced by any tissue outside the testis, it is inside the testis only. 5, 6, 7 complete. 5 is very important, this diagram, very common in your paper. 6 is a new addition in the book. This has come in one of the years.
What term is given to the period of
Gestation.
Period of development of the fetus, gestation.
Mention 2 functions of the part labeled as 2, which is placenta,
And
other than its
embryonic-
endocrine function.
Respiratory.
I didn't get. What is the question?
Mention 2 functions of the part labeled as 2, other than its endocrine function.
So here,
Two
Diffusion and respiration.
embryonic respiratory organ, excretory organ. Helps in the excretion functions.
Diffusion of vessels.
3. And embryonic role also it has. Endocrine role also it has.
Main hormone secreted by ovary.
Main
Main hormone secreted by ovary.
testosterone.
Ovary.
Estrogen.
Main hormone.
Main.
Main
hormone.
Main hormone secreted by ovary. Estrogen. Main hormone, I heard male hormone. Main hormone secreted by ovary. 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 Done? 2 questions left. Read the chapter and try those 2 questions also. Next, we will look into population.
कौन कर रहे हो? ये लोग कौन कर रहे हो? कभी सीधा वो आंसर ही नहीं कर रहे। कभी सीधा वो आंसर नहीं करेंगे, मुझे तो गुस्सा आता है वो दोनों पे।